Mainit na usapin sa Kongreso ngayon ang ginawang pagkakaladkad ni Paldasa kay Stella Quimbo matapos mapatunayang ginamit umano ni Quimbo ang pondo ng bayan para sa sariling kapakanan. Sa gitna ng sesyon, matapag na ilinantad ni Daza umano mga ebidensyang nagpapakita ng labis na paggastos ni Quimbo sa mga luho sa kabila ng kanilang tungkulin na pangalagaan ng kaban ng bayan. Bukod kay Quimbo, lumutang din ang pangalan ni House Speaker Martin Tambaloslos sa nasabing kontrobersya. Ayon sa ilang ulat, posibleng sangkot rin si Romualdez sa maling paggamit ng pondo ng pamahalaan na nagdudulot ng malaking pagkabahala sa publiko. Itinulong itong isang malaking pagsubok sa kasalukuyang administrasyon, lalo na't ang naturang mga personalidad ay may mataas na posisyon sa pamahalaan. Dahil sa mga aligasyong ito, marami ang nananawagan ng masusing imbestigasyon upang matukoy ang lawak ng mga umanig katiwalian sa Kongreso. Uhawang publiko sa pananagutan at justisya para sa maling paggamit ng pondo ng bayan, at marami ang umaasa na magkakaroon ng konkretong aksyon upang sugpuin ang mga tiwaling gawain sa gobyerno. Patuloy na babantayan ng taong bayan ang magiging takbo ng imbestigasyon at ang magiging kapalaran ng mga sangkot sa isyong ito. At yun na ang balitang ating pagkakatutukan. Ngunit bagong lahat, siguraduhin mag-subscribe at ihit ang notification bell para sa patuloy na pagtutok sa mga silap ng bagong balita sa tunay na boses ng MASA.
Has been a failure in my assessment of that project. But the original project was really a project of NEDA PSA. May I ask the sponsor what's now the status on the PSA side, because on the card printing side it's been canceled and I'm sure there'll be cases filed. What's now the status on the, for my understanding, which is the IT component side with PSA?
Okay, so currently, we have 89,893,983 Filipinos registered. That is as of September 12. I hope that you noticed that we brought the system here today, and that was just for you, Your Honor, because the last time, I believe you made a manifestation at the DICT hearing, you said that you did not have a national ID. So we took note of that and wanted to make sure that your details would be captured today. So they set up the system here at the lobby. So we hope that you took advantage of their presence today, Your Honor. So for sure the numbers would have increased as of today. And so this would be 97.7% of the 92 million target for registration. And as of 12 September, 53,712,583 ID cards had been delivered.
I'm sorry, how can you repeat that again?
53,712,583 ID cards
Speaker,
had been delivered.
I appreciate the efforts of a sponsor, PSA. I wasn't able to avail of doing the biometrics. I've been here the whole morning till night.
It will be there for 1 week.
Okay, I'll try to go there. But I mean, I appreciate the effort, but I think more importantly, it should be highlighted that that project has been, for lack of a better term, a failure. It's 3-4 years delayed. Some billions of pesos have been appropriated and used for the national ID system. In fact, in the last budget hearing, the DICT, when I had asked about the national ID, I did a quick survey from colleagues and staff in the House. Many of us still haven't received their national ID, despite the fact that we did the sign-up. I personally did the sign-up I believe before pandemic, if I'm not mistaken. And many of the staff here probably did so too. Some got their ID, some didn't. But having said that, I wanted to ask the sponsor, who will now be printing IDs for the hard copy ID, because they gave it to BSP. BSP fumbled it. Where will the printing come from now?
It's not, so currently, it is being bidded out. They are looking for an alternative, a new provider. But in the meantime, the DICT is providing digital IDs. So that is the situation at the moment. And in addition, there is an arbitration that is ongoing.
It's a terrible story, unending saga of failure, and I could probably say it's a fiasco. In the private sector, if somebody or if a team or a group failed in a project, there would be suspension, terminations, you'd be written up. So I'm curious, has NEDA or PSA ever done any disciplinary action? Or have there been any findings internally why this project, even though we have appropriated sufficient funds, have been a dismal failure?
Well, at this point, it's the BSP that is, it's the BSP that is claiming liquidated damages from their service provider.
I understand, Madam Chair.
But that's all at the moment.
Yeah, I know it's a difficult question, but let me reiterate it. There's been a problem with BSP, but I think NEDA PSA should also share some burden. It's been delayed. We all know that. I think no less than the president has complained, from what I know, both publicly and privately. No less than the president's exasperated on this very good project. So my question, Madam Speaker, is, has anyone in NEDA or PSA, it's the normal course of things, you would do a due diligence or an internal investigation and kind of determine where we failed, where we should improve. Because it can't just be, yes, we're going to keep on doing it year after year, it's the same questions, same responses. So has there been any fact-finding, any due diligence from PSA? And if so, were there any findings? Because other than learning, good lessons from a failed project, there should be some sort of action taken, at least from within the department or within PSA.
So the NEDA had reported this to the president, and the president had already ordered the DOJ and OSG to look into the matter, and so the termination of the contract. Oh, not sorry, that's not related. And so the OSG provided an opinion to the BSP. And that opinion is part of that arbitration.
But, okay, thank you for that. That gives us some information. How about on the side of PSA? Has there been any fact-finding results, evaluation, opinions on any possible shortcomings on the PSA side?
Yeah, so at the moment, the PSA is of the belief that it is better to do the digital national ID. That is according to the PSA. But I know where you're coming from. Their TOR is to produce the physical ID. Yes. So this is a question that you've been asking me 3 straight years, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
And doesn't the sponsor agree that it's a fiasco? It's a failure. And I guess would it be a fair statement to say that it's been a failure of a project? Would I be too harsh to say that?
Well, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, it is what it is.
And
we were unable to...
Is it a failure or a success?
It cannot be a success. We were unable to complete the target. It resulted in arbitration. It did not result in a completion. So, and we are currently looking for an alternative.
But, okay, I don't want to put my esteemed colleague too much on the spot because she's just responding for the agency. But is it correct that my understanding is the President has asked DOJ, OSG
for an opinion?
On the BSP side, but how about on the PSA side? On the possible shortcomings, despite 4 or 5 years now, billions of pesos, there hasn't been really a completion of the project.
None on that matter.
Should there be one?
Madam Speaker.
Should there be one in terms of accountability, transparency, good governance, or better governance?
Well, that's something that we can think about.
So the sponsor doesn't believe there should be accountability on this project?
We should always think about accountability. It's a very important project.
And what does the Secretary of NADA have to say about that?
Open to a third-party review.
Oh, thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I think that's a good idea. And I would highly recommend that. And I leave it up. You know, our job today is just to make sure that we're discussing budgets, appropriations, utilization. That's an implementation issue, and I'll leave it up to the wisdom of my distinguished colleague to push for that because you do sponsor that agency. And I support that suggestion of a third-party review.
Madam Speaker, distinguished sponsor, to my esteemed colleagues, and sa mga opisyalis po ng National Economic Development Authority, magandang gabi po. Madam Speaker, is our distinguished sponsor willing to yield some of her time for some questions from this representation?
Certainly, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, para sa unang set ko po ng mga katanungan, I will be pertaining po to the budget of the Philippine Statistics Authority. Madam Speaker, tiningnan ko po ang website ng PSA and nakasulat po dito, magkakaroon po tayo ng census for population and community-based monitoring system na magaganap po mula July 15 to September 16. Nakalagay po sa website ng PSA. Meron pong budget ito ng 5.7 billion pesos for data collection, processing, mapping, coordination, and advocacy activities. Meron pong 27.4 million households covered, 29.8 thousand institutional living quarters. Can our distinguished sponsor and our department confirm these figures?
That is correct, Madam Speaker. Your Honor.
Madam Speaker, may I also get an update? Since September 16 na rin po ngayon, maaari ko po ba malaman kung natapos na po ba ang ating census, kung ano po ang latest updates dito, kung napuntahan na po ba ang lahat ng mga household and institutional living quarters na covered?
Madam Speaker, Your Honor, sa ngayon po, nakumpleto na po natin ang 70% ng ating target.
70%, Madam Speaker?
That is correct.
Madam Speaker, may I know, when can we expect na matatapos po ang ating census?
Ang expected po natin na date of completion is October. But let me just explain na the reason po for bakit nagkaroon tayo ng konting delay is because of the typhoons. So yun po ang dahilan. And by December, ay iti-turn over na po ang data sa NEDA. Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
Madam Speaker, I would also like to confirm from our department and from our distinguished sponsor, based on a 2020 census, 3.7 million Filipinos were without birth certificates. Pwede ko po ba malaman kung sa 2021, 2022, and 2023 census, ano po ang findings ng ating PSA? Ilang milyong Pilipino naman po ang walang birth certificate?
Yung pong first figure na binigay ni Honorable Abalos, tama po yung figure, pero doon po sa for years 2021 and 2022 ay wala po tayong nagawang census.
Wala pong nagawang census. Okay po. And then for my next question po, Madam Speaker, I would like to confirm, sa isang hearing po sa Senado, ayon po sa PSA, meron pong mababang low death registration rate sa iilang bahagi po ng ating bansa. For example, sa BARM, nabalitaan ko po, for the year 2020, 30% lang po ang mga death registrations natin, and for 2021, 42% naman. Can our distinguished sponsor confirm this?
Yes, that is correct, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
And also po, Madam Speaker, may I get a rundown po? Tuwing nagko-conduct po ng census ang PSA, ano po ang mga major data items na kinokollect po natin sa ating mga census? And at the same time, may I know how these data are significant when it comes to the crafting of legislations, for example, pagdating po sa ating social protection programs, and pati na rin po sa distribution ng ating national tax allotment sa mga lugar na nangangailangan po ng karagdagang pondo at budget.
Sa unang tanong, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, kung anong information ang kinokolekta. Ang una po dyan would be the household characteristics. So, niro-roster po lahat ng tao sa loob ng isang bahay at pagkalista po ng pangalan ng miyembro ng household ay nililista po, kinukuha po ang mga demographic characteristics tulad ng edad, sex, date of birth, birth registration, marital status, religious affiliation, ethnicity, basic literacy, highest grade and year completed, so including educational attainment. Pagkatapos po noon ay kukuha din natin ang economic profile nung nakukuha natin ang profile ng mga barangay city, municipality, and province. Saan po nagagamit ang census? Ang isang halimbawa po dyan would be sa pag-compute po ng national tax allotment, sa pag-create po ng bagong mga barangay, ginagamit din po yan, sa pag-redistrict, sa yung CBMS naman po ay ginagamit po yan sa pag-target po ng iba't ibang mga social protection programs ng gobyerno.
Maraming salamat po, Madam Speaker. I would like to reiterate, ginagawa po natin ang yearly census na ito dahil napakahalaga po ng data na kinokollect ng PSA dahil nagsisilbi po ito bilang guide sa ating mga legislators and of course to our departments when it comes to the crafting of policies and the implementation of programs na makakatulong po sa ating mga kababayan. I understand na marami pong fortuitous events na nangyari at dahil dito nagkaroon po ng delay in order for us to complete the yearly census, which is very important. Nakalagay po dito mismo sa website ng PSA, the simultaneous conduct of the census specifically aims to, number 1, update the inventory of the total population in all barangays, cities, municipalities, provinces, and regions in the country. Napakahalaga po yan kasi kung kinocompute po natin ang share ng isang local government unit sa national tax allotment, titingnan po natin ang populasyon. At kitang-kita po natin dito, in the past censuses, nakita po natin na merong 3.7 million Filipinos without birth certificates. Meron rin pong trend kung saan nagkakaroon rin tayo ng delayed registration of deaths. And that way, nakalagay po sa ating konstitusyon that every local government unit deserves a just and equal share of the national wealth. And paano po natin masasabi na merong just and equal sharing kung hindi po nagre-reflect ang accurate number po, kung hindi po natin nako-complete yung census at the right time. So paano po natin maka-quantify and ma-identify ang mga area po na nangangailangan ng karagdagan pong social protections. Now, that brings me po, Madam Speaker, to my next question regarding birth certificates. Following the revelation of the fake birth certificate of Alice Go, maraming naglabasang posibleng kaso ng fake birth certificates sa iba't ibang parte ng bansa. As such, PSA has revised its rules on applying for late registration of birth. Kasabay ng application for late registration of birth ay ang pag-apply ng national ID. This way, kailangan pong humarap ng applicant personally. Tama po ba, Madam Speaker?
Madam Speaker, Your Honor, that is correct.
Madam Speaker, I would also like to ask, bukod po dito, ano po ang mga iba pang measures na ginagawa ng PSA para masugpo ang pagkakaroon ng mga peking birth certificates? And if I may add po, may I ask about PSA's existing digitized system on late registration of birth and how secure is this? Kasi may mga breaches po na naganap in the past kung saan ang mismong empleyado ng PSA ang nagko-commit ng fraudulent activities. Halimbawa po dito ay yung job order employee na siya mismo ang nag-facilitate ng process.
Madam Speaker, Your Honor, sa ngayon po, naging mas stricto na ang ating processes. Ang nag-a-approve po, ang approval po ngayon ay for late registration ay inakyat na po sa province level. So kung dati po ay pwede po at the outlets, ngayon po ay kailangan po at the province level. So that's one control measure, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
Yes. And Madam Speaker, if I remember correctly, noong 2020 census, may figure po tayo na 3.7 million Filipinos na walang birth certificates. However, in the previous years, hindi po ata siya nasama sa census. Am I correct?
Madam Speaker, Your Honor, doon po sa 3.7, yung 1.4 doon po ay nahanap na po. So sa ngayon po ay nabigyan na po ng birth certificate yung 700,000 doon. And the remainder po ay pinaprocess na po ang kanilang birth certificate.
Madam Speaker, may I request for the commitment sana po of the PSA na sana po sa census natin ngayong taon at sa mga parating po na taon, dahil naging trend na po hindi naman po sa naging trend, pero dahil may mga occurrences and may mga findings na may mga pagkakataon po na nagkakaroon ng mga fake birth certificates, sana po maisama po natin sa ating yearly census ang ating mga kababayan po na hindi pa nagkakaroon ng birth certificate. And aside from that, pati po yung death certificate. So, can I get the commitment po of the department on that, Madam Speaker?
Yes po. In fact, dahil may commitment ang PSA po sa napakagandang layunin na yan, ay inumpisahan na po nila yung kanilang paggamit po ng data analytics sa paghahanap ng mga likely fraudulent birth certificates. So they have become proactive that way. So tinitignan po nila in certain areas na kung saan more likely based on certain characteristics. And sa ngayon po ay busy po ang kanilang mga statisticians and pati na rin po ang kanilang legal unit. So, yun po ang update. And yes, ano bang specific timeline? So, by the end of 2024, yan po ang target nila, is 99.5% of all Filipinos ay dapat mabigyan ng birth certificate. Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
Madam Speaker, sa PSA Memorandum Circular Number 2022-15, nakalagay po dito, the objective is to increase the level of civil registration, especially in marginalized communities. This was reiterated by another Memorandum Circular Number 2023-06. Are the two circulars with relaxed requirements still being implemented, Madam Speaker?
So they are strengthening the protocol of late registration by adding a requirement which is registration to the national ID system. Para nag-appear din po kayo doon sa system na yan.
Okay. And Madam Speaker, for my next question po, sa mga instances or sa mga kaso na napatunayan po natin, kunwari, na fake ang birth certificate ng isang tao. For example, in the case of Mayor Alice Go, let's say nagkaroon po ng final finding and ruling ang korte na peke nga ang kanyang birth certificate at hindi siya isang Pilipino, matatandaan po natin na naging mayor po siya and isa sa mga kapangyarihan po ng mayor ay ang pag-solemnize ng mga marriages. For example, hindi po Pilipino. For example, napatunayan na nga po na hindi Pilipino si Mayor Alice Go. And at the same time po, ano po yung epekto nito sa mga marriages na isinsolemnize niya? Kasi nakalagay po sa ating batas na kung walang authority to solemnize ang isang solemnizing officer sa isang kasal, void po ang kasal. So ang ibig sabihin po nito, magiging void na rin po ba lahat ng mga Pilipinong ikinasal niya? And at the same time, ano po yung maaaring solusyon po natin in case mag-arise ang problemang ito?
Madam Speaker, Your Honor, napaka-ganda ng issue na ni-raise ng kagalang-galang na JC Abalos. So one step at a time, sabi ng ating Philippine Statistics Authority. Sa ngayon po, they are in the process of canceling ito pong birth certificate ni Alice Guo. As soon as that is approved by the court, ay babalikan po lahat po ng marriages solemnized by Alice Guo. Nasa records naman po lahat yun.
Okay po. And Madam Speaker, Now, I would like to proceed po to the budget of the agency in regard to its staffing. Maaari ko po bang malaman, Madam Speaker, ilan ang mga posts sa PSA, ilan po dito ang unfilled at ano ang percentage ng unfilled against the staffing posts of the agency?
Sa ngayon po, meron silang total plantilla positions of 3,200 and of that, 86% are filled. So the 14% of, so 400 would be unfilled.
400. Tama po ba, Madam Speaker, ang nabasa kong report na ang PSA po ang may pinakamalaking bilang ng unfilled positions sa kabuuan ng NEDA and its attached agencies?
It's possible, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, dahil sila rin po ang pinakamalaki sa NEDA family.
Maaari ko po ba malaman, Madam Speaker, kung ano ang mga dahilan kung ba't hindi napupunuan ng staff ang mga posts na ito? Maaari po bang malaman kung ano-ano ang mga positions na ito at gaano kahalaga sa smooth and efficient running ng agency o paano ito naapektuhan ang kasalukuyang pamamaraan kung paano tinatakbo po ang ahensya?
So sa ngayon po, the exact number is 481 ang unfilled, pero karamihan po dyan ay finifill upan and they are actually in the process of being promoted. So, yun po ang... So in short po, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, hindi naman po siya as alarming as it would seem because ang mga taong ito ay actually, masaya po sila kasi sila po ay in the process of being promoted.
Madam Speaker, I also understand na ang PSA, meron po ditong mga non-plantilla positions to fill the cavity in staffing such as job orders, contract of service, project consultants. May I ask po our distinguished sponsor and the agency kung ano-ano pong trabaho ang ginagampanan ng mga staff po na ito generally?
So, karamihan sa kanila, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, ay ang ating mga field workers na sila po ang taga-conduct po ng field work ng ating surveys tulad ng census, tulad po ng ating family income and expenditure survey, tulad po ng ating labor force survey, tulad din ng National Health and Demographic Survey, CBMS. So napakarami pong surveys ang kinokonduct ng PSA. Ilan ba? 33 surveys po, lahat po yan on a yearly basis. At dahil napakarami po niyan, kailangan po nila ng napakarami din pong field workers. Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
Madam Speaker and distinguished sponsor, maari ko po bang malaman po, sa tingin po ba ng ating distinguished sponsor and ng ating agency, masasabi po ba natin na ang trabaho ng isang field worker, masasabi po ba nating may sensitive or may data security risks ang kanilang trabaho?
Yes, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, tama po yan. Dahil meron po silang kinakapture na personal data.
Maaari ko po ba malaman, Madam Speaker, kung ano-ano po ang mga measure na ina-apply ng agency para masigurado pong masecure natin ang integrity ng mga data na hawak ng ating mga JO, contract of service, and project consultants, given na ginagamit po ang datos na ito sa paghulma ng mga public policy at program?
Madam Speaker, Your Honor, well, una, meron po silang oath of data privacy. Meron po silang, they have to obviously, and kumbaga po, it's an agreement between themselves and the PSA before they begin work. Secondly, they have to undergo training on topics such as data security and privacy. At maliwanag naman po sa kanila dahil sa mga training na to kung ano ang mga paglabag under RA 10173 or on Data Privacy Act of 2012. So kung ano mga breaches meron dyan at kung ano mga penalties. Kaya magiging maliwanag sa kanila kung gaano ka-serious ang mga breaches na to just in case mangyari nga ang mga yan. Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
Madam Speaker, nais ko lamang po rin ibalik muli sa issue ng anomalya sa late registration of birth. Dahil isa sa mga concerns po sa PSA staffing ay ang report na may mga kasong nagpasilidad ng pagproseso ng fake late registration ay job order employee. Sa pagkakaalam ng ahensya, tama po ba ang report na ito? Ilan at saan ang mga insidente na ganito? At maaari ko po ba malaman, Madam Speaker, kung gaano nakatagal na nangyayari ang mga ganitong insidente?
Sa ngayon po, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, PSA is currently investigating 49 local civil registrars. 49 out of 1,634.
And ilang birth certificate po ang involved dito, Madam Speaker?
Sa ngayon po, ang mukhang may problema ay 1,530 birth certificates. At ito naman po, ang of these 1,530 ay 1,433 ay foreign nationals at ang 97 po dyan ay local. At lahat po ito, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, ay blocked na sa kasalukuyan.
Maaari ko po ba malaman, Madam Speaker, paano pinaprocess ang pag-hire natin sa mga JOs at COS and sa consultants? Paano nalilinaw po sa kanila ang kahalagan at bigat ng responsibilidad na hinahawakan nila? Malinaw bang nakasaad dito sa kontrata o terms of reference ng bawat isa, Madam Speaker?
Madam Speaker, Your Honor, yes, maliwanag sa kanilang kontrata ang responsibilities nila. At doon din po sa training ay nare-reiterate lahat ang mga ito. Katulad na nabanggit ko kanina, lahat po ng mga important provisions doon sa Data Privacy Act ay tinatalakay. So, and at the same time, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, ay may mga spot checks na ginagawa po. It's important also to note that may PSA adopts best practices po in terms of securing their data.
Magandang balita ang hatid namin sa inyo ngayong araw. Sa pagtatapos ng aming balitaan, nagbigay kami ng mga mahalagang impormasyon. Maraming salamat sa pagtutok at pagsuporta sa aming programa. Huwag kalimutang manatili sa mga susunod na araw para sa mga bagong balita at mga kwento na dapat nating abangan. Mula sa Boses ng MASA, magandang araw, Pilipinas!